not interested.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Captain Marvel? Stick around and find out. Blockbuster Video, wow, what a difference. Okay, just a stinger that time. I couldn't really think of another, like, a musical theme to go with Captain Marvel. I guess I could have picked out some tune from the 90s or something, but that's all I got. I had other things I was focusing my attention on the drive home thinking about this movie. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Captain Marvel. The synopsis on IMDb reads, Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races. Well, that happens near the very end of the movie, I guess. I'm going to really try to avoid spoilers, but some broad strokes I'm going to be talking about in terms of the plot of the movie that kind of disappointed me a bit. Talking about the story, the script, the tone in general, it's largely, I think, a serious space / sci-fi action movie. Compared to many Marvel films, it's not as jokey. It's still definitely jokey, and sometimes yanks the tension out from under a scene as a result of the jokes. But I wouldn't say the jokes are as pervasive and constantly coming at you, like many of the other Marvel movies. I would describe the story as plot-driven rather than character-driven, even though the plot is largely about the main character's journey to uncover her past. There's big mysteries about, well, is she human? Is she alien? What's going on? And she's trying to, she has amnesia and stuff, so a little bit of a pulling from the JRPG playbook there. She doesn't really, I don't think, grow positively as a character. She just learns more about her past over the course of the movie. The slow revelation of her true past and her true nature was interesting enough to keep me from wanting to, leave the theater, but I was never invested emotionally in the main character. In fact, my biggest moment of emotional investment came from how an old friend of hers expressed her loyalty and love for her. That was a genuinely moving moment, but I felt more for the character who was expressing the loss that she felt since they'd been separated for so long. I was feeling more for her friend than I was for Captain Marvel. And I'm going to call her Captain Marvel through this entire review. They don't call her Captain Marvel through most of the movie, but I'm just going to call her Captain Marvel for clarity's sake for this review. My biggest problem with the story was that I felt no stakes or tension throughout it. The trailers indicated, and some of that was because of how they treated the power levels. I was disappointed by the power levels, and I was waiting for her to, I was like, she can do more than this, right? I mean, most of the action was earthbound, or if not earthbound, then it was located in a space vessel or on a planet or something like that. It wasn't high flying crazy epic stuff, which there's an indication of that kind of thing going on in the trailers. And so I was waiting for this thing to just kind of open up, and I realized about halfway through, it is not going to open up. This is it. This is the main beef, the main meat of the ride. The trailers that I saw indicated that Captain Marvel would have these cosmic, Green Lantern levels of power, but most of the movie she doesn't, and is fighting low power enemies. And so imagine, if you will, a Green Lantern movie where Green Lantern spends the story fighting like Batman's rogues gallery level of power enemies or something, and then realizes only in the climax that he can do a whole bunch more with that awesome ring. I hate superhero stories that hang on depowering the hero. I bought the comic or the ticket to the movie to see this hero do what I know they can do. I want to see them cut loose, and then I think it's up to the writer to come up with creative ways to challenge them given the status quo of what their powers are. But we didn't get the status quo of this character's powers. I think we're going to probably see that in the Marvel or the Avengers Endgame movie, and then if there's a Captain Marvel sequel in that. But we did not get that in this movie, and that was really disappointing to me. She comes into her power at the end fully, and at that point is so powerful she mops the floor with everybody. And any tension in the climax is not about her, ability to fight the opposition. I guess maybe they were trying to create a sense of climax and tension from her fighting her desire to give up. Because really the climax is about her saying, no, I'm not going to give up. But as the movie makes clear at that point, she's never been one to give up. That's just part of who she's always been as a character. And so I'm thinking, was it really a fight for her in this moment? Nope, she's just doing what she's always done, getting back up and getting back into the fight, you know? So there wasn't a true internal struggle for her as a character that I detected, other than her struggle to recover her memories. But there was no struggle to, like, you know, push against her urges. You know, she was just kind of like doing what she naturally felt drawn to do, I think, through pretty much the entire movie. And the outward struggles came from her mostly being depowered, you know, through the movie. As far as the cast goes, the cast was all fine. I'm not going to comment on any of them except for Brie Larson, because she plays Captain Marvel. And I really did not think I was gonna. I didn't think I had any reason to that I would enjoy her performance. When I watched the trailers, I don't know, for whatever reason they gave me the impression that she was just going to be, as an actress, just kind of this mousy little pretty girl that they tried to make seem tough. I went in with an open mind though, because I felt the same way about Gal Gadot, and I think that not necessarily because of her performance. Well, I'd have to watch Wonder Woman again to remember what I thought about that. But I think it was a combination of Gal Gadot's performance and what Zack Snyder did in her premiere in Batman vs. Superman that surprised me. I was like, no, she really is coming across, you know, really big and tough and cool and imposing and stuff. So I was open to that kind of thing being the case in this movie as well, that the filmmakers would do things that would cover up what I perceived as the mousiness in her performance. But I don't know if it was just the clips they chose in the trailers, but when I was watching the movie itself, I was like, oh, she's not coming across at all like I thought she was going to based on the trailers. I felt she seemed to like really fit snugly into the skin of an action hero, you know, both in her physical performance with the stunts and the fighting and stuff, and just the aggressive way that she kind of carried herself, and also in her character performance, in her personality. She was like this kind of cool action hero type character, you know. So I will look forward to seeing her do more with this character in Avengers Endgame and in a Captain Marvel sequel with a script that I will hopefully enjoy a lot more than I did this one. So talking about stunts and visuals, this was interesting. You know, I think that this movie could play, at least in the first 20-30 minutes, like an isolated space sci-fi movie in a lot of ways. But when trying to view it through that lens, it was weird because the set, the costumes, the makeup designs, they all kind of give away that Marvel vibe. It didn't feel like hard, grounded sci-fi to me. It felt comic booky. And like when I tried to view it through that lens, I was like, well, this all looks more fake than, you know, and less grounded than, like, say, your average Tom Cruise sci-fi movie or something like that, like Edge of Tomorrow or something else, you know, or Minority Report or something like that, you know. It just had this more colorful, plasticky kind of vibe to it, to my eye, that I think would have given away that it was a Marvel movie, even if I didn't see the logo at the beginning and know, of course, from pop culture osmosis that it's a Marvel movie. The visual style, I think, as a plus, unites it with other Marvel films like, say, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it fits in really well with that. But again, it also made it feel a little fake and plastic to me. I think it felt better. It felt like a better fit in my head once they started interacting with, like, Nick Fury and other characters we've, you know, seen from the Marvel universe. Visuals and stunts, you know, they were otherwise fine, but not groundbreaking to me. After seeing Aquaman, I even though the plentiful CG in that movie looked plenty fake to my cursed eyes, I wish that Marvel would have likewise invested in a Captain Marvel movie that visually cut loose and leaned into the cosmic nature of the character some more. But they didn't do that, so that was a little bit disappointing. And maybe that's partly just because I just came off of Aquaman, which is this kind of, you know, like Captain Marvel, a third-tier character. Well, Captain Marvel's arguably in the Marvel universe a fourth-tier character. But they took a third-tier character and they just threw a big old budget at him, and they just cut loose with everything crazy that the world of Aquaman has to offer, you know. And we did not get that, I don't think, with this Captain Marvel movie. And so I think maybe in the context of Aquaman, if I removed that recent experience, maybe I wouldn't see this one the same way. I don't know. The depowering would still definitely bother me. I don't usually comment on music and sound, but just a brief comment here. This music now and then owes, I think, a little bit to the score of the Mass Effect video game series, or whatever inspired the score in those games. games. It really gave me an itch to play Mass Effect again, but I'm sure that's going to wear off with the busy day that I have ahead of me. Okay, moving on to themes. Is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this story that might trigger worthwhile thought or conversation? I think that there's definitely a springboard here if you're looking for one. The message of this movie seemed to be not just follow your heart, as is always kind of a groan-worthy thing to me, but specifically follow your angry heart. Man. At the start, Captain Marvel is told by a respected mentor/friend in her life to stop using her heart and start using her head. And this mentor friend, he says that he wants her to be the best version of herself. And she's being told as a part of that process to submit to the supreme intelligence, which if you see the movie, you'll know what that refers to. But anyway, I thought, well, that's interesting. Submit to the supreme intelligence to be the best version of yourself. Stop using your heart, start using your head. This almost sounds kind of biblical, The Bible, although I need to say, doesn't advocate that we stop feeling altogether. My gosh, not by any stretch of the imagination. Emotions are part of the full human experience, but rather, I think as we take the principles of Scripture and apply them to our lives, we see that our feelings should be guided by what is true, should be a response most times to what is true, or at the most should maybe just be like attention getters for our minds to get us to stop and think about, what it is that we're experiencing and what does truth have to say about this situation that we're in. God does not want us to be feeling these unfeeling obedience robots. He wants us to willingly accept His guidance so that we can be what is currently unseen best version of ourselves that we were truly meant to be. However, by the end of this movie, a respected mentor/friend in Captain Marvel's life says admirably of her, boy, it's hard to follow your gut and go against orders like you just did, and that's something that she has naturally done throughout her whole life. And in fact, at the end of the story, it's the villain who is saying, use your head and submit to authority, things like that. Don't give in to your anger and stuff. So, it was a really disappointing kind of turnaround. Now, in this movie, conveniently in support of our natural desires to follow our feelings, the target of Captain Marvel's anger is evil. Her anger and lack of submission are justified in this story. And so we feel, I think, some appropriate satisfaction as she rebels and acts out in anger in the context that she's in. And I think it's worth noting, in fact, doing so, rebelling, acting out in anger, being in rebellion against any kind of authority or submission, helps her realize her full potential. I think that's interesting that that's the moment that happens in the story is when she's doing that. The problem here, as a theme, as a takeaway, is that anger almost always feels justified. I mean, when's the last time you felt angry and in the moment that you were angry said, I'm wrong to be angry? I mean, maybe there are some good, we have some good moments where we realize, dang it, I'm angry and I know I shouldn't be, But for me, most of the time when I'm angry, I feel justified in my anger in the moment. Absolutely, I feel justified in my anger in the moment. And rebelling against submission, even submission to those wiser than us, feels right in the moment. So consciously or not, the writers here are just telling us what we want to hear. It's like putting sex in a movie. This film is just thematically giving us what naturally appeals to us. The feeling of justified anger being expressed through aggressive action. I mean, gosh, that feels good, doesn't it? Yet we can agree, with this movie that we shouldn't unfailingly submit to flawed authorities. Certainly not evil ones. But the alternative they present, going with your gut, my gosh, is that the best alternative? Is that the best we got? Well, as Christians, we definitely don't believe that. I mean, what are my notes here? What was I just going to say? Oh, okay, yeah. My point that I was going at is, that feels better to us to kind of like give in to those kinds of things. But what we need to increasingly learn is how to submit to God, which involves submitting to others out of a desire to learn from and obey Christ. We see that in Ephesians 5:21, that as we're submitting to others, we are meant to submit back and forth to other believers, but that's not just like to just like boss each other around. No, 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 no. We're submitting to each other out of reverence for Christ, with the end goal of understanding the true nature of Christ, what he has for us, and what we ought to do in response to who Christ is. Rather than a rogue agent or a lone hero mentality in our walk of faith, we're meant to live in community with other believers, seeking out, like willingly seeking out their counsel, seeking out their perspective, their advice even on the issues we are navigating in our day-to-day lives. In figuring out how to submit to Christ, we need to open up ourselves as a part of that process to hear from other Christians who are on the same journey, some of whom hopefully are further along than we are. We should seek out those kinds of people too. Otherwise, we're going to end up giving in to the worst parts of ourselves, justifying thoughts and actions in our minds that work against what God has made us for. We're going to get to this real soon in our study. We're going through the book of James on Christian Geek Central, the podcast and the YouTube channel, and we're about to arrive at James 1, verses 19 through 21. Oops, my phone's going off, but I'll give you a little preview of that here. James 1, 19 through 21 in the ESV says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the feelings from your gut." No, receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. God, through his word, wants to increasingly save our souls day to day. That's not just talking about saving us from judgment and eternal separation from God. He wants to increasingly save our souls through the implanting of his word in us. And that process rescues us from the destructive natural urges that we inflict on ourselves and others around us. See, God does not want to take away who we are. He wants us to progressively become the best possible versions of ourselves and who we were made to be. All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter. Oh man, skip this one. Hopefully they'll give like a recap of her origin story in Avengers Endgame so you won't feel totally lost. But man, if you can skip this one, it's just not your kind of movie. It's rated PG-13 for sequences of sci-fi violence and action and brief suggestive language. Let me get some water before I try this. All right. All right, got that out. Right now, I'd like to take some time. I'm going kind of sultry here. To write a tune for pre-made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate. Reed Benson, Libre, Stefan Kremik, and barbells and joysticks. Thank you for supporting me and SBP and CGC. And now, to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Wanna hear your name in song? Check out our page on Patreon. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. This month, if you're a patron of any tier at patreon.com/spiritblade productions, I'm making our genre-bending sci-fi fantasy audio drama free forever. That's Spirit Blade Legacy Edition, free forever, coming this summer. But first, all the patrons are getting it at patreon.com/spiritblade productions, including an all-new video version with text commentary taking you behind the scenes. The first part of that is going to roll out this coming Monday. For more info, go to patreon.com/spiritblade productions. Of course, I would really appreciate it if you would like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell, anything that you want to do to share this content with others, I'd be grateful for. And then I hope you'll join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.